Have you been looking for a podcast to help you transform your physical and mental? One that'll shoot you straight between the eyes with truth and no BS, helping you have the right mindset to accomplish things, the iron will and fortitude to follow through with what you say you're going to do. No excuses. Mark owns martial arts schools, and after 30 years, he has some real insight for real talk, real life, real conversations, motivational, fitness, self-defense, weight loss, live from the Great 1-8. This is Real Talk with Mark Cox.
Good morning. Good morning. How you doing, Linda?
I'm great. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing awesome. Good morning. Welcome to my show, Beyond the Mat. Looking forward to our conversation. We've had to have some conversations before. We've talking about health, so to be something that we get to dive into a little bit. So before we get started, guys, I do have a one sponsor here that comes on each week. So if you give me just a second, let me put my sponsor on real quick, and we'll get started with everybody. Sound good?
Looking for the best cup of coffee to start your day? Look no further than America's Best Coffee Brew. Our well-crafted coffee is made simple to enjoy with a smooth and delicious taste that's sure to please. And with our easy doorstep delivery, you don't have to leave the comfort of your home to enjoy it. That's why we only roast our beans when we receive your order, ensuring you get the highest quality cup of joe and most flavorful coffee possible to enjoy the great outdoors or just lounging at home. Order today and experience the bold, rich, and authentic taste of America's Best Coffee Brew. Order now at americasbestcoffeebrew.com.
All right. Sounds great. I want to thank our sponsors all the time, going to help us get all this cool equipment that I got that I get to play around with as we do our podcast. Good morning, Linda. Good to have you on my show. Listen, guys, I'm going to introduce you to Linda a little bit. And let me read her bio to you, and then we're going to turn it over to her to expand on it. So this is Linda McBee we have today. Her bio says, I started to educate myself about food and the ingredients in food when I was 10 years old. I've been under doctor care with counted calorie diet and lost what was equivalent to 50 pounds over a year. Now, 50 years later, I'm about the same size I was when I graduated high school. I've had about a dozen autoimmune, come on, Mark, issues, including infertility, thyroid, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. Oh my goodness, what is up with me today? To name a few. I've always been interested in my health and looking for health solutions in my personal and professionally ran finance and marketing companies. I have been to doctors all over the world to try and find solutions, but was not successful. I had to close my business a few years ago after dealing with neurological Lyme disease. About 3 years ago, APLGO was introduced to me. It was a healthy candy and saved my life. It addressed the health issues I had. I have since had functional medicine coach. I have become a functional medicine coach. Working with doctors with specialists is needed. Man, sorry about that. I kind of butchered that today. I don't know what's up with maybe I got knocked around too much over the weekend. Losing my focus, can't talk. Okay. So Linda, let's talk a little bit about, it says in here that you were 10 years old when you started dealing with food. Let's talk about that. What made you do that as a kid?
So I lost my mom when I was 5. My dad remarried about 8 months later to somebody that was bipolar and abusive in every way. So I began to bury all that trauma from my past, from being abandoned and abused, to my gut. And so one of the things that she did that really was helpful is I began to gain weight because emotionally I was a wreck. And she took me to a doctor and they put me on a counted calorie diet. Now, the females on both my mom and dad's side of the family are very, very heavy, over 200 pounds plus. And she didn't want me to go down that same path. And I'm size, I'm 5'2", size 6. So now, but back then I was pretty tiny, but I was starting to carry some weight. And so she wanted to begin to help with that. And the doctor, of course, 50 years ago suggested to count calories. And what that did, and people go, oh my gosh, why did you do that so young? But it began to educate me how much sugar is in ketchup, what are the ingredients, what's the chemicals that are in it. And so it was an educational piece to begin the pathway in ways to help me stay healthy and studying food and the things that I do today.
That's pretty awesome for somebody that's at 10 years old, because I think you are correct. I believe, you tell me what you think, that, neither one of us are doctors. So, but I can tell you this, that there is definitely sugar in everything that people do. And if they don't really kind of pay attention to that, sugar is something that can overtake. Now, I think I told you before, I stopped all sugars. I think it was about 3 years ago when I went on I had some blood clots, and same as you had trauma, I had this overwhelming sense that I was going to have a stroke. And so it really kind of freaked me out. And then at the heaviest I was 100 pounds heavier. I had lost 100 pounds. And that was due to stress and everything else that was going on. And even though I was an athlete, even at that weight, I could still do things. Being an athlete doesn't mean it was a healthy way, but those blood clots, took me into another mentally. It just didn't do well with me. I had to overcome that mentally. And sugar is one of those things I gave up when I did it. And I still don't really do any sugar today. I don't really have, I'm not a cake guy. I had to give up, the ice cream and everything else that goes with it. And there are ways to get around sugar. So what's your thought on the sugar, on how our kids are just sugared up on every freaking thing they have?
So it makes me think of a good friend of mine who actually grew up in a commune in Maryland, and the family made all of their food. And so he never had any sugar. And in high school, the family and commune is just a big farm that is kind of resourced inside of itself. So you live on the farm and everything within it. And they sold that, and he moved and went to public school for the first time ever in his life. And he took food in, and he immediately traded it for whatever anyone had. And the more cakes and cookies that were involved, the happier he was. And within a week, he was expelled because of his outbursts in rage. Sugar is worse than cocaine in the body. And again, as Mark mentioned, neither of us are doctors. I am a mental health therapist by trade. I got my degree in mental health and have been in the field and to work with special needs and things, but it's crazy. And it's what's causing a lot of the issues today with ADHD and all of the others, in my opinion. It is just.
So I agree with that. I think that, even in my own household, when I did things, I look back, even when I was going through my divorce and stuff, and how easy it is to just grab pizza, or how easy it is to just grab some food, and how much stuff was in it. Or right now, I cannot tell you how many of my teenagers, I am on them so constantly about these energy drinks that they drink, that I'm like, what are you guys doing, man? You can't be drinking these monsters at your age. You shouldn't be drinking monsters anyway. I really don't do any energy drinks per se, but I just don't like them. They don't taste well to me, and they don't, I can have one and then I'll be raging from it. I don't really know what's in those things that make it so,
So there's massive sugar, and you can Google, and It's not good. It's actually caused heart attacks and caused people to die from them. I don't suggest them at all. There's a product called Zip Fizz. You can get it at Walmart. There's no sugar in it. It's all B12, potassium. And because I don't even suggest Gatorade, because most of that is sugar and a lot of dyes and chemicals that aren't even good for you. We could spend another whole podcast just on sugar and what people are eating.
Well, I think that, and you're right. I think it's
just gasped.
I just think that it's important that I preach this all the time on how much sugar is in anything, including like what you said, including ketchup. When I tell people that over a quarter of that bottle of ketchup that you have is sugar, a quarter of it, and it's so addicting that it's hard to get away from anywhere you go. And I've watched, and I know being a parent myself, all my kids are grown now, but it's just so easy to give them sugar. It's just so easy to do. It's just it's just an out. You know what I mean? It's just so easy. Even I have a martial arts school, right? So we talk about health, and we come in here. And so what is the snacks that everybody brings on Saturday morning? It is a bunch of donuts. And I ask them every time, why do you guys do this? Why do you bring these donuts, man? I mean, bring some fruit for the kids or something. All you're going to do is sugar them up. There'll be sugar all day, and they're going to crash in the afternoon. And it's just not a healthy thing. So I think I agree with you 100%. I that's why I was excited to have you on, because this is your profession. Let other people hear, let other moms hear about, hey, what is this that we got going on? Oh, Danielle is on saying hi. There she is.
Hello. Yeah, it's there's so much that we have no idea what we're doing, and it's so easy. It's just quick and easy, but first of all, it's a whole bunch of empty calories and chemicals, and it's in the end, we're actually doing and creating, as you were talking about with the rage and we're creating a lot of anxiety and outbursts for the kids that with table sugar. I don't even keep sugar in my house. Every once in a while if I'm going to bake, but when I became a functional medicine coach, I learned that I have celiac. So I cut out gluten. So now try to cook pasta for the rest of the family. And is this done? Because I'm not going to eat it. I'm like, how do you fix it? So I've even started to convert to non-gluten pasta and different things that are healthier, just because then I can figure out, is it done or not, and it not be all gooey.
So let's talk about what that is exactly, what you said. You said you're a functional medicine coach. Why don't we dive into what functional medicine means?
Functional medicine, so there are doctors that are functional medicine doctors that I work with, and I take my background of my mental health degree, and we find out from folks what happened in your childhood, in your teens and 20s and 30s and 40s. Did you experience, because health isn't what we have it today. Health is who you were yesterday that makes who you are today. And as a GP, as a general practitioner, a doctor that you go to, they're looking at what are your symptoms today, not what happened in your past that might have caused the health issues and the struggles you're having today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think we spoke about this before when you and I had kind of a virtual coffee about Western medicine and what it does, or doctors that you go see your general practitioner and they'll say, well, you just need a 1,200 calorie diet. Doesn't really mean where the 1,200 calories come from. They're so not specialized in that field that I just believe that's poor advice as it is. You know what I mean? So,
well, and most doctors up until recently have had very little need for nutrition. There's very few credits that they need to take. There's very few classes, even in botanicals and alternative medicine, holistic things. There has been some recently that additional courses that the doctors have to take, but just enough, just a smidget. So it's not what their focus is. And the other challenge with going to a regular doctor, they say to you, well, your blood pressure's high. Let me send you to a heart doctor. Your sugar level's high. Let me send you here. So, and then all these different doctors, they don't communicate with each other. So as a functional medicine coach, when somebody needs doctors, if there's medications that they're needing to get off of, I reach out to doctors depending upon where someone lives. And some of it's online, different options, and even out of the United States. And then we pull together a team, because maybe there actually might need to be some therapy for a grief issue that like myself, lost a parent, or going through a trauma that can really cause a lot of health issues. And so it's everybody working together instead of each individual for themselves and then referring it to somebody else and then not talking to each other.
That's interesting. I think, well, I think you're correct in saying that, there's a mental thing that happens. There's a spiritual thing that happens, and then there's a physical thing that happens. And if they're not kind of coincided, there's, it's always kind of a little bit lopsided.
Right.
The gym is kind of a place that I enjoy the gym because, I just kind of like putting music on. I like hearing the iron clang, and I like to lift, and it just kind of, it puts me in a different mood for sure. Why don't we hit stress real quick? Tell me what you think stress does for people in that field. What do you think?
So stress is really interesting because with APLGO, it's a nutraceutical line that's botanicals. So it melts. It's a candy-like in that it melts in your mouth with no sugar. It's the DNA from the plant that's extracted and then formulated with molasses and beetroot, which is all natural, because your body does need a little bit of natural sugar for nutrition to really absorb. But table sugar, it's not that type of sugar. It's with molasses, it's all natural. But our number one product, and it's funny because right before we started, I grabbed like 3 products. Our number one product is anxiety. It's the number one top seller because stress and anxiety, especially over the last 3 years, has been through the roof. People have lost jobs. They've worked from home with family, juggling everything and being a teacher, school teacher. And we're still struggling to getting back to a little bit of normalcy after all of that. And that's just in the last 3 years. That's not prior to. So stress and anxiety is huge, and suicide is becoming an all-time high.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real issue, and that has to do with stress.
So, well, let's dive into what we're here to talk about is this product a little bit that you have, because you've had, let's go over your medical first, because you said that let's talk about Lyme disease. Let's talk about what Lyme disease is real quick and what you had. And if I remember right, doctors were having a hard time. I don't know if Lyme is just something they treat, not something they try and cure. I don't know if there's no cure for it. Or let's dive into that first, and then we'll talk about how you found this product. Okay.
Absolutely. So I'm going to touch on I'm allergic to a lot as Mark mentioned, I have a lot of autoimmune issues, but I'm also allergic to laundry soap solutions, things that most normal people put on their skin and use. I have chemical sensitivity to issues. So not only is it an issue with putting it on my skin or experiencing it on clothes, and that, like with laundry soap, and then wearing clothes that have the chemicals and having massive psoriasis to the point where I almost would bleed because I would itch so bad from the reaction. But my stomach wouldn't process anything either. So here in all this, I was trying to stay healthy, and I did this all professionally for myself, as far as capsules. And so I don't know if people are swallowing horse pills that smell bad. When they go to swallow them, my body would reject them. So it would literally, they would come out of my body. Or green drinks that mix up. With a functional medicine coach, I had to take a food test as well as a GI test. So food test is to see what food sensitivities you have. So I'm sensitive to things like spinach and carrots and sweet potatoes and things that most people think, oh, well, that's healthier than like lettuce. And like, yeah, I know. And I just found that out a year ago. So I was eating all those things that my body wasn't liking so well. It was hard for it to digest. So the autoimmune issues snowballed on themselves. And I grew up, after my mom passed, I lived with my grandmother and grandfather who had a dozen horses. So I don't know if I got the Lyme disease from there. Lyme can sit in your body dormant until there's a stressor. It's kind of like speed, and then it'll hit and it just explodes. I didn't know it until probably 7 or 8 years later. It had started to trigger about 7 or 8 years prior to it being diagnosed. There's very few doctors that can diagnose it. In my opinion, it's an autoimmune issue that is just exacerbated, because as I studied and met and got to know other people who had Lyme disease, more than likely they had 2 or 3 other autoimmune issues. So that's what I'm going on. And as I talk to other people that have way more knowledge in the health field than I do, that's been their feedback as well. But it's kind of crazy because in some areas, I live in Maryland, so in some areas it's more prominent than others. With it being from the outside, it's when you're bit by a tick. And 98% of people who are bit by a tick don't get a bullseye. But that does not mean that you've been affected. So you don't have to have a bullseye to actually end up with Lyme disease.
Do you remember that, or you just don't even remember if that's how it came about?
I don't.
Nothing that was taken out of you or anything like that. It's just something that has come about. And then you've had these. Why don't you talk about what issues is Lyme disease? What kind of stuff happens with it?
Sure. So one of the massive symptoms that a really good friend of mine picked up, and thank goodness he had more medical knowledge, is every 3 or 4 months, I was ending up with a different health issue that would require an antibiotic. So the first sign, if you are someone every 4 or 5 months, start documenting when you're going to the doctors and they're prescribing an antibiotic. And it could be for anything, because Lyme will just kind of spread throughout the body. So I would have a sinus infection. I would end up with, I can't even think, it happened over about a 3-year period that he came back to me and he was like, I think you have something else going on. because what happens with Lyme is the antibiotic that they give you for like 7 to 10 days is enough to throw it into remission to lay dormant before it kind of wakes up and begins to create havoc. And then around a full moon, it does, it will lay eggs. And that's probably not a conversation for her on the podcast on live, but it can be a mess. If you think you might have it, please reach out to me. I'm not a doctor, but I can help you kind of get some ideas. But it creates all kind of brain fog with neurological. My best friend pulled me aside, and some other mutual friends actually thought I was doing heroin. My sentences didn't make sense. What I was saying had nothing, like one thought had nothing to do with the other. And I was so I ran a finance and marketing company for the last 30 years in outside sales. I was selling advertising, and I had run a financial business, and it kind of had started way back when I was an insurance broker. And I had no idea. So it will begin to, and then it got to the point where I would just be exhausted all the time. And then,
chronic fatigue, right? And
yes,
that took you out of these symptoms and stuff you had. That's inside your little bio there. It talked about how you had to shut down that business.
I did.
Correct.
Yes.
Just not being able to function. So let's fast forward to where we're at once this happened. How did you go start looking for other options outside of just Western medicine that treat or not treat per se what's going on? What did you do, and how did you go about looking for it?
I did a lot of praying and just really prayed that God would direct me. The first, I did find my friend who said, I think there's something else going on. He asked me to go to a doctor in Maryland that was a Lyme specialist. I didn't know it at the time, but he said to me after I went to the appointment, he was like, I don't want you to fill any of the prescriptions until you take a picture of them and send them to me. And the doctor did put me on doxycycline. I was on doxycycline, which is an antibiotic, so you can't go outside in the sun. And I was on that for 3.5 years straight. Wow. Horrible to
on
the
an
body.
Antibiotic for 3.5 years.
Yes,
that's kind of brutal. For sure,
it was very brutal. It was very brutal, and I got to the point where I was like, okay. I'm starting to feel better, but they didn't give me anything nutrition wise. And of course with the Lyme, you'll crave a lot of sugar because it wants food.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
It did for me. That was some of the signs that it showed up for me. And so, I was still looking. They would give me some vitamins and things that I'd have to swallow, but they make me nauseous. I've tried powders and everything, and I'm allergic to latex and some fillers. So because of like the spinach and the other things that buckwheat and some of the other things that I found out that I was allergic to on the food test that I took, a lot of supplements have that plant in it. So it was causing my body to not absorb it, especially with all the other autoimmune issues.
What's the food test? Where did you get that? Where is that from?
That was part of the functional medicine coaching program that I did, and that I can have people do. But it's there's a couple of them that are out there. Some are a little better than others. But
You
there's
think it's worth? I think that it's interesting that you talk about spinach, kale, things that people think are super healthy.
I
It's
can
funny
actually
that
eat kale, but so I grew kale in my garden, but spinach and carrots, like
spinach.
sweet potatoes, almonds. Well, I'm lectin deficient, and if you've ever, most people who have been in health have at least heard about lectins, and so how some of the and I can't explain lectins. It's just it's something that the body has a hard time digesting.
Right. So it's funny. Because there's some things, cabbage based stuff really upsets my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even like sometimes, and I like Brussels sprouts and stuff, but when I start eating that stuff, man, I'm telling you what, heartburn comes.
Yeah.
It's funny. Your body will let you know. You just want to ignore it. Half the time your body tells you, hey, every time you eat this, it's going to suck. And yet you still eat it knowing that it's going to suck. Isn't that weird? That we're wired that way.
Yeah.
And as
insanity, right?
right. It's just, I find that I think people really realize more than they think. They just don't want to come to the realization, like, man, there's certain things I got to cut out. Because the acidity is just knocking me. As I've gotten older, I'm telling you that acid reflux and everything else is even worse than what it was as a young man.
Oh,
and trying to figure out what is it, what causes it, what doesn't, has been taxing, to say the least. You know what I mean? Getting old isn't for the weak. I can tell you that, because every day is something. Every day, you wake up usually in some kind of pain, and you just kind of ignore that, go on with your day, and then how it goes with eating. You're like, man, and it's pretty bland for me these days. You know what I mean? I just not having a lot of sauces and all the kind of stuff that go on there, because man, I get major heartburn from that, and I've seen that change as I've gotten older, for sure. I mean, I'm sure that you hear this all the time from us older folks. Let's just say that.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think we're about the same age, so I'm right there with you. But I did learn, like, vinegar is not my friend. Oh, but I also, with the functional medicine coaching, and at that one last piece with that is I teach people to eat according to their blood type. And that's
I've heard of that too. Let's dive into that. What's that? Tell me what that looks like.
So it's very creative, because, and I did recently just find out there's some ways to find out what your blood type is. Pretty simple, because typically most people don't know what it is.
I know it's weird, right?
They've had a surgery, and then they'll hear about it, or maybe if they've given blood. But like, I'm type A, so meat's really not my friend. My husband hunts, and so fortunately, it's organic, so I can eat that.
Right.
And some cod and wild salmon, and that's pretty much on my list of meat. And the rest is vegetables. But then eggplant, that's not my friend. It has some issues with the digestion. Type O, totally the opposite end of the world. They're more of a meat-based. And you can Google what to eat according to your blood type, but that is one of the things that I talk about and help people realize that maybe that could be a huge solution. And because it goes into detail, like the different vegetables and the different things, and it's all correlated to the foods that showed up on my foods that my body doesn't really care for. So it was quite interesting.
Right. So I found that weird too. When I did I asked my doctors, I said, what is my blood type anyway? I asked them this question, and they didn't have it in the records. I said, how can you possibly not have that? I don't understand. So I told them, I said, I said, I've even had surgery now, so you guys have to know what something. And they didn't have it. And I said, okay, so this next blood test, I want a full panel and I want to know what my blood type is. I mean, I cannot imagine our general practitioners not knowing what our blood type is. That was so weird to me.
I got the same answer when I called my doctor. But as I was doing the functional medicine coaching, before I got my blood work, before I did mine, I was like, oh, let me just kind of see. I called the doctor and no. I've had probably a dozen female surgeries from my infertility issues. And nobody knew what my blood type was. And I was like, so if I never needed blood, was that going to happen?
Right. Exactly. So so if I needed it, what do you guys got to figure it out on the go? Yeah, it's just some things to me is just, it really is mind boggling to me. Right. I was gobstopped on that. I was like, well, I don't understand how you don't have that. So I think that's an interesting case. So let's dive in now. So you found this company. How'd you go about finding the company? Let's talk about that kind of issues, because I know I first of all, the company, as soon as you talk about multi-level marketing companies, everybody has a thing. I think I told you too, I was involved in a multi-level marketing company. I did very well in it too, but it wasn't, it was service-based, not product-based. You know what I mean? So, cell phones, all that kind of, long distance. When long distance was a thing, that's what it was, right? When long distance was an actual thing.
Oh, so
yeah, I mean, you remember back in the days, what's our long distance, right? So let's talk about how you found this and who turned you on to it and how it turned your life around. Let's talk about what this is.
So honestly, Mark, I was really privileged because the master reps of the United States, Kelly Vincent, was who called me. And he called me, the company opened here in the United. Now, I had privilege to work with them in a prior company that wasn't health and wellness based. But he was the one who called me and he was like, we found a healthy candy. And I'm like, I'm in. I was like, all I have to do is suck on it, seriously. So I was just blessed to be at the right place at the right time. So literally the company opened July of 2020. And I started like that same day that he called me. And we had just opened the United States the day before. And when the product came, they are correlated to the chakras, and they all taste like a lifesaver. So they all taste great. This is the one that was for parasites because of the package. It's all shiny. Let me see if that works better. There we go.
Right, there it is.
MLS, that's for parasites. And so this is literally the one so every time I would eat with Lyme disease, you get pretty nauseous. And no matter what you eat, whether it's clean or not, I guess because of the Lyme and the sugar that the ticks, or that's going on, that they're craving, they're pulling that sugar. I have no idea, but I couldn't eat without being nauseous. And honestly, about 2 or 3 months in, I got up from the table one day and literally stopped in my tracks because it was probably the first time ever that I wasn't nauseous. But every time I would eat, I would grab one of these, and there's one for digestion. And I'll send you some of these for your reflux and see if we can address that, because that can actually cause some other health issues down the road if it's not addressed with the but this tastes like oranges. They all taste like fruit except 2 of them. The one that I took prior to coming on here that I should have sent you was BRN, that's for focus.
Right. I'm going to tell you, man, that's one thing that bothers me as I've gotten older is I'm like, what is up with this short-term memory? So I don't get it. I mean, I don't know about you, but every once in a while, I'm like, now I see this guy every day and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I mean, it really bugs me. really bothers me. I'm like, did I get knocked out that many times going up through my career that, that I can't think at 60 now? So
I didn't want this when I had neurological Lyme, when it was in full blown, I would struggle with that all the time. So I was like, well, I don't want to struggle with that today because I want to make sure I get my message across clearly about the product, what it's done for me. So I did take one. I'll have to send you some to that one tastes like either coffee or Werther's Original. I've had some people say it tastes like a coffee latte, and some people say it tastes like a Werther's Original. Because of how it's made is why I've had such great success with it. So it's the DNA, it's the liquid from a plant. All of the product has negative ions in them. They're extracted, dried, formulated. Let me pull out this one since it's darker. It probably will be a little easier to see on the screen. So they're hermetically sealed, so they won't expire. But because we're FDA registered, we do have to put a date on them, on the boxes. So you can put it under your tongue. You can put it just on your tongue, but when you put it on your tongue, your cell sees what's deficient in your body and begins to pull the superfoods from that product and address it. As I was on a conversation yesterday talking with a gal who works with women with alopecia, with hair loss, and she understands how they're halal, they're kosher, so they're vegan. She said, well, all of them work then. And I said, you got it. I don't have to explain that to you. And I said, yes, there's 17 different ones. If we can help a little bit target the one that is the best for them, they'll get more nutrition from that product that their cells will absorb and get a benefit from. And the testimony, we have tons and tons of testimonies. We actually have a full testimony group. I think the one that blows us away the most is we have a nurse who's 70 years old. She took 2 products, one for immunity. It tastes like Hubba Bubble bubble gum. It was designed for kids. And one that called Slide that is for inflammation. So it has turmeric, pear, mint. Those 2 products. She lost 60 pounds in the first year that we were in the company. She started, but the first 3 or 4 months, she didn't lose any weight because the cells were beginning to get the nutrition it needed. And then she started losing weight. And we sat the owner down, who's 36 years old, I think he just turned 36. He was here in Maryland a year ago. And we were like, why? An immunity product and one for inflammation caused somebody to lose 60 pounds. It wasn't even a weight loss product. And he said that when the cells get the nutrition that somebody needs, the body begins to respond accordingly and repairing those cells. And so it's almost 100% absorbable since it's mucosal, meaning it melts in the mouth. This one that is for focus will break the blood-brain barrier. And so that's the difference between something that's a lozenge and something that you have to swallow. And I had my little, I'm not seeing it. I have a little Ziploc bag. It says this or that. And the one has literal capsules that you swallow. It's a visual.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, right. The lozenger thing is interesting to me because it's probably an ease of being able to take it. What is out of the people that you've helped, what is a testimony from somebody that you've helped? let's who's come to you and has seen a major difference?
I had a gal come to me. I have many, but I have a gal that came to me that was like, I'm having trouble sitting. I'm driving in a vehicle all the time. And she said, but I also get injections in my scalp because I have alopecia, hair loss and inflammation, and they're giving me injections in my head. So I gave her 2 products. I gave her actually the same 2 that I mentioned with the 70-year-old nurse. The one for immunity, because she transports a lot of people. I wanted to keep her healthy, and one for the inflammation. The first one she took, she said, oh my gosh, that was amazing. My back no longer hurts when I'm driving. And then she continued on the product and was able to not have to have the injections anymore. And I think the cutest one was just posted on LinkedIn. It was a gal who bought my product that I was in a networking group with, and she makes her own CBD, and she's here in Maryland, but her daughter, and this product is safe for pets, kids, seniors. If you have someone that you're afraid they'll choke, dissolve it in a little bit of water and put it in a syringe or on a spoon. But she had an abscessed tooth, and she was just miserable. And the doctor was, she couldn't take her anywhere. It was like either on a weekend. And she had this product that literally had sat on her shelf for over a year. And one of them was for pain. And she gave it to her. And the little girl was just bawling and just miserable. And within 10, 15 minutes, the gal asked her daughter what her pain was. And she says, it's all gone, Mommy.
Oh, that's good, right?
And now she's like, oh my gosh, I need to get active in the business. I've been sitting on this product, having no clue what all it could do for folks. And now she's actually doing an event next week. And I'm like, I'm out of town. I wish I was here to help you. So anyway.
So I just put in the chat, what I have on your website is happydnacandy.com. Is that correct? Where people can take a look at this.
It gives you a short little video, a little bit about the science behind it. Didn't really touch on any of that, but there's tons of science. And that landing page comes directly to me. Okay. So you can, if you scroll down past the little bit more information, it's Q&A and some other things. Along with my contact, there's my cell and email. So.
Okay, well, I got that out there because, I think that, as we look around for product, and you're right about one thing, it's hard to swallow a lot of pills all the time, but it's certainly easy to suck on a lozenge of some sort. You know what I mean? That makes things a little bit easier. And I don't know, it does something to you when you're kind of doing that, right? Mentally, well, yeah. That's why people chew gum or whatever they do.
Right, especially since they all have negative ions in them. And negative ions, if you're not familiar with what that is, it's pulling that energy from the earth. So with yoga, they'll tell you to go outside and walk in the grass in your bare feet. It's pulling that energy and that research. And it's why we go on vacation, because we typically go to the beach or the mountains, both of which have tons of negative ions in them. So,
yeah. That's interesting for sure. For sure. So you said that all this stuff is safe for children also, correct?
Yes.
So do you see that other life choices have to change in order for this to work, or can it start working with them still kind of doing what they do?
That's an awesome question. So I'm not here to have you give up anything you're already doing. Just make a couple changes. and give it a try, because especially medications, I'm definitely not here to have you work with your doctor, but we've had people reduce and get off of medications, whether it's blood pressure medications, our one for diabetes, because it addresses the blood, can help type 1 as well as type 2. And the reason how it helps type 1 is type 1, they haven't had to need as much insulin, because it's all about the pancreas and getting the pancreas to work better. So, of course, type 1, you'll never be able to get off of insulin, but it's how much that you're having to take each day. Type 2, absolutely. That and some of the other food changes and getting off the sugar, that's an easy switch.
Well, and that's right. I think that, I tell everybody all the time, I said, hey, listen, health is, when your health is down, it doesn't matter how much wealth you have. Okay. Or whatever else. I just know this from a fact. You know what I mean? Even in myself, when you don't feel well, nothing else seems to really matter.
Right.
You agree?
Oh, I totally agree. And my my businesses were pretty successful when I had to shut them down, and when I didn't have any income coming in for a couple years, and putting all that stress on my spouse, it wasn't fun. That created more stress for myself.
Right.
So,
yes, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree, because I'm starting to listen to kind of the stuff that you say, and people here that I know. One of my black belts, he's got a school too, and his name is Brandon, and he's got something that has just came like a psoriasis that is just overtaking his head. You know what I mean? He's a young, good-looking guy, and he goes, man, my head feels like it's on fire, and they can't really. He's went different doctors. Now he's changed to a vegan diet, a Mediterranean vegan diet, to try and deal with these scabs. Now he's losing hair because of it. So I know people in my head that they have no answers, and they're trying everything to make things happen.
And I only really talked about APLGO's products. I do have some other products and resources for folks, in addition, as a functional medicine coach, and to get some answers and to do some things. The most devastating thing with having to shut my business down is I could have easily went back into what I was doing before. But there were too many people in the world today, like myself, that couldn't find answers. I literally have gone to doctors I live in Maryland, from San Francisco to New York to all over with no answers, and I felt like the guinea pig. And if that's you, I'd love to have a conversation with you to see if there might be some things that could be addressed. And
so what do you do with that, Linda? Do you have like a virtual coffee with them? Do you set them up as an appointment? Is there a cost to have you to talk with you, or how does that all work?
No, I don't charge to have a conversation with me, because I don't know whether, let's see what you've done, what options you want to do, and then I can steer you in that direction. But with some of my doctors, yes, there is a cost that the doctors would have. But if it's not that bad, and we want to look and see if there's some, because the psoriasis and things, I'm pretty intuitive too. And so immediately I kind of like, I have a feeling I know what's going on there. So I'd love to have a conversation with him. But yeah, absolutely, reach out to me. Just because the link about the APLGO, it is connected to the Happy DNA Candy. That is not the only thing and resource, but that is a way to reach out to me and scroll down to the bottom, and also get my cell and all the other ways to contact me.
Okay. So, and I'll have, Linda, I'll have everything on my website. Also, I have the longer version of what you have. I'll make sure that gets on my website so people can go ahead and contact you. And right off the bat, I know that I might even have my daughter talk to you. You know, my young daughter she's 21 and she struggles, man. She struggles with stomach issues. She struggles with anxiety and different things. And, medical, I don't know, man. We've had her go talk to medical and it's just not what I'm looking for. So I think I have some people already in mind that I'll turn on to you. Brandon, for sure. I'm going to have him call you. His name's Brandon Kemmer. And I'm going to have him reach out to you and maybe you can help him because he is helpless at this point. He's got nothing concrete to help out with. You know what I'm saying? So we'll do that. We'll do that together and see if we can't make a difference in. And it's great to have somebody that hasn't something that we can send people to. You know what I mean? So.
Absolutely. I have my dog that's climbing around my computer, so I hope she doesn't pull off one of my cords.
Well, I'm a dog lover anyway, so I'd rather hang out with dogs than people half the time anyway. To be honest with you.
This has been awesome. I do need to jump off.
Yes, I know you got a call that's coming up, Linda. I appreciate you. Thanks for the time, and I'll have this out on audio, and I'll reach out to you. Sound good?
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. It's been a pleasure. It's been a great joy. I'm so honored to have had this time together today with you.
All right. Have an awesome day.
You too.
You've been listening to Real Talk with Mark Cox. Real life, real topics, real conversation. We're passionate about motivation, fitness, self-defense, weight loss, and coming at it from a real angle. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we hope you had fun. We know we did. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on Instagram and Facebook at MarkCox100. Make sure to subscribe and review. And tell a friend or two about the show. For more, hit up the website at markcox.com. Till next time, keep it real.